Whoa, guys, we're here at Virtual Reality Racing Club, continuing our Virtual Reality Racing Club coverage. But in this video, I wanted to talk to you specifically, or talk through specifically, the motion rigs that they use here. Because, well, you know, you're into sim racing like me. Who doesn't like a motion rig? There's nothing more arousing. And they've got here the Sim Tech Pro motion rigs. Now, I'm going to go through every single component on it because why not geek out on the components? That's what we like. So we're going to start with the pedals. Get ready for a ride, guys. So on this rig, we have the Fanatec Club Sport V3s. Which I'm sure most people are familiar with these pedals. Absolutely fantastic. You've got the load cell brake, which is obviously the load cell is a potentiometer, measures pressure instead of distance, allows you to stamp on those brake points. You've got the nice, with the V3s, you've got the ability to adjust the throw, the pressure, and you've got a sort of almost like fluid dampening feel to them that can be adjusted. Lots of options on them. You've also got the two motors that aren't on at the moment to give you a bit of feel for the braking. You can set that up through fan LEDs or through the Fanatec software. But the pedals, Fanatec V3 pedals, let's move onto the next component, which is, I'm not going to do the wheel yet, we're going to look at the screens first. Now, this rig is using a triple screen setup, three 1080p screens. At the moment, though, we've got some telemetry on the screens rather than using triple screen because the driver is in virtual reality. But on the subject of the screens, if you're living in the past, and it does seem quite divisive, a lot of people do like the triple screens, and a lot of people like the VR. I have to say, of when I've been around real-world drivers, VR makes them drive naturally, and they do seem to struggle a bit with triple screens. But I know the debate, it's never ending. I can see pros and cons for either. I think I'm more on the VR side for me, but there you go. You've got the three screens out on this rig though, and they are mounted onto a sort of the main platform. The way this is set up is you've got like an actual overall platform, if that makes sense, that everything then goes on top. The point of which being is you've got something that can basically be wheeled around. I mean, it's literally on wheels. You can push this around, so if it's going to an event or something, it can be set up, wheeled in, put in a lorry, taken out, and it's all in one piece, ready to go, which is pretty cool. But then the monitors are mounted onto the actual floor platform, separate to the chair. So you've got this going on here. You've got the ability to obviously tilt them and get your angles set up for your triple screens. Not using that in VR, but you've got that as an option there, which is pretty nice. It's all pretty nice and stable. You see the old 80-20 extrusion, I believe it's called. It's the majority of the construction of this. I probably got that wrong. Now, should we talk about the wheel before we talk about the actual motion chair? Now that's operating. The wheel, you might notice this, those of you that use Thrustmaster equipment. On this specific build, we've got the TSPC Racer with the one of the GT rims with a sort of suede finish on it. Obviously, with Thrustmaster, you can swap all the wheels out. Sort of a semi-quick release system with the like rotating. You can swap your rims over. Now, you might say that's not the highest end of wheels, but I'll talk a bit about that in a minute, but it's good enough, to be honest, in terms of getting general feel from the game. You get a good response there, and when you combine it with the actual moving chair, then having used these rigs a fair bit, when you've got a motion rig, and I say this is the case with other motion rigs I've used, you tend to notice the wheel less. Personally, I'm a big fan of having the force feedback from the wheel because you don't get G-forces. I as a born and bred sim racer, I kind of look for the feel of the car through the steering wheel. But when you do have a motion rig, it's a balance between the two of them. So here, the way that this motion rig works, which is really cool, is it has two actuators or two servos on the rear here that pivot the chair left, right, forwards and backwards obviously based off what's going on in the game. It actually reads it really directly, and it's actually super responsive. I'm really impressed by how detailed these are. These are, I think, these are run on a Sim Experience controller box, but you get a surprising amount of detail, which you can obviously dial in to however you want for each simulator, each car. And it's what's really crazy though to me is that the way this operates is that there's underneath the chair there's a little. Let's see if we can get this on camera clearly. There's a little. Well, camera's too low to the ground. So there's a pivot down here. Oh, can I get any lower? It's a little, probably ball joint pivot that everything's balanced on. That the servos are then moving the chair over. Now, despite the chair not moving up and down vertically, you still actually get a really good perception of it feeling almost as if the car's suspension coming through the chair. I was really surprised the first time I used this how nice a relatively simple two servo motor motion rig system operates, and how much detail you get from it. It is just surprising compared to you have these ginormous sim rigs. You actually get something really decent out of something that's quite small here. So moving on from the actual motion, the motion chair, we could talk a little bit about VR, seeing as Rich here is actually in virtual reality. He's of course using an Oculus Rift. I mean, I don't really need to say much about VR other than, it's 3D, it puts you in the game. Definitely, with a motion rig, you really do notice that the VR is magnified massively when you've got a motion rig. With VR, it's compounded when you add motion to it. So with the force feedback wheel and VR, it's, in my opinion, way better than when you're playing a VR game without a haptic force feedback device. But when you've got the force feedback wheel and the force feedback, or the motion rig, the servo chair, it just absolutely amplifies it. It's hard to convey without you trying it. It's one of the problems with motion rigs and VR is if you're not actually using it, it's very hard to convey how good it is. But you have to trust me on this. You watched a previous video from VRC with me driving the F2004 in VR with the motion rig, and you can see it's genuinely pretty damn good. Now moving on from the VR, and partially continuing on with the aspect of this being a single unit, is that you've got in the back here. I'm going to open this and hopefully not. I'm going to hold on to it because otherwise I'm going to crush the sim rig here. But you'll notice in the back, which is really cool, we've got the PC down here with lights, full RGB. I mean, if it didn't have RGB, you'd have to put the whole thing in the dustbin. Let's be honest, it's all about the RGB. But in the back, you've got the PC with everything all tucked away. And we've got the actual controller box, the Sim Experience controller box for the servos. You'll be familiar with that if you've got an AccuForce force feedback wheel. It's got a very similar controller box, and then the servos use a similar thing. This all uses the Sim 5, I think it is, software. I might have got that wrong, hopefully I haven't, but you use the same configuration software that you use with the AccuForce wheel. Really good, really nice. You can dial it in with these things. So we've got that in there. We've got a subwoofer sound system, and this rig also has a full UPS. We've got the audio controls. It also has a full UPS in there, so that with this specific rig, again, this is largely designed to be able to be taken to events and set up and wheeled out and ready to go. With the UPS, it can have really dirty power going to it, and the UPS sorts it all out. Or if there's some kind of like power disaster, your rig's not going to explode whilst people are riding on it, which I hear is probably a good thing. But that pretty much is an overview of this specific Sim Experience build. It's worth saying with these types of rigs, as is always the case with this stuff, a lot of it is interchangeable. Like the chair could be different, the wheels, the pedals, the VR headsets, the screens, everything can be basically configured and customized to how someone wants to have it, our client wants to have it, So but this is just one of their specific builds. But absolutely, it's an absolutely awesome piece of equipment. Not the kind of thing that, well, first of all, the size of it. I mean, you can see how big Rich is as a person, and then you can see how that. I'm not calling you fat. It did sound like that. I am calling him fat secretly. No, but you can see how big Rich is. That's a person. He's an average height person, I'd say. I don't know how tall he is. Let's say 6 foot. Let's go for that. It's a good guess. He's not a basketball player, and he's not a ballerina. So he's an average person, and so you see how big he is. You see how big the rig is. If he was to lie down, the rig is around about 6. It's about the length of a person. So to have that whole thing in there. No, it's not going to fit in your average sitting room. Let's be honest. But for what it is, it's not a monstrosity. Get one, you probably get a divorce. But it's probably worth it. So there's not really that much more to say about the equipment. I just wanted this video to be really focused on this specific rig and the hardware. So yeah, there we go. I hope you enjoyed that, guys. We are going to have some more content from Vrrc very soon, so look out for that. Obviously, we do the live streaming, so make sure you subscribe and like and look out for us with our other content. Big thank you to Vrrc. Let's get the camera over here. And Rich for having us over. We appreciate being able to play with nice simulator toys. I actually kind of hate him a bit. If I'm fully honest, I do hate him because every time you use a motion rig, you're like, you forget. You don't use it for like 3-4 months. You forget how good motion rigs are, especially when combined with VR. So I'm gonna have to try. I'm just gonna have to use one of those Men in Black things to get this out of my mind after I've been here, so I can forget how good motion rigs are. But big thanks to Rich. Big thanks to Vrrc. Don't forget to add him on Twitch. I'll put all the links underneath the video. You know how it works, everybody. Till the next one. Thanks for watching. Take care and goodbye.